Well, welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video, and today I wanted to talk about my strategy for buying multiple copies of comic books, both kind of the CGC 9.8 and some of the raw comics I have. And, some CGC 9.8s I have like direct editions and a newsstand edition, and then, other copies I just have 2 or 3 direct editions. So, kind of wanted to just make a video explaining my strategy of buying, 3 or 4 of CGC 9.8s instead of putting that money towards something else like maybe a silver or golden age book or something like that. So, to kind of give a little background, the overarching reason, I'm someone who buys what they love. I really like to have an emotional and a nostalgic connection to the books that I have. So a lot of those books are going to be those ones that I really loved when I was like 10 years old, which was peak comic book collecting time for me pretty much in 1995. Spawn was brand new and super hot back then. Todd McFarlane was the coolest thing. Wizard magazine and all those cool 80s books that I happened to end up grabbing were all the ones that I was just really like nostalgic for and I couldn't afford because even back then they were like 30 bucks maybe some of them. And, just being 10, those are the ones that are kind of attainable but still you can't afford them. So really love to have that nostalgic, emotional connection to my books. So, with that in mind, I've somewhat made a decision, at least at this point in time, to, not really buy any silver golden age books. The overarching reason is I don't really have a big emotional connection to silver age books or golden age books. I think I'm starting to like them a lot more. With the internet, you're able to like see them a lot more and, you see some auctions sell and see people posting really cool silver and golden age books on Instagram and stuff like that. But like, for me personally, I don't really have that emotional, nostalgic connection to silver age books and golden age books. So I think that'll take a little bit of time to develop the sort of love for those kind of books. And because, for me, I just think I need that emotional connection to throw down the cash, because it's a lot of money to buy these books. So, I think with that in mind, it kind of makes sense for me to pick up a couple extra copies of the 80s and 90s books that I really love and are nostalgic for because it, still kind of fits my budget. And, because I don't really want any silver golden age books, there's only so many, Batman and Spider-Man key issues, and I like to stick to those iconic characters too. I've said on past videos, so Batman, Spider-Man, Star Wars, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, just really the kind of bread and butter iconic superheroes are the ones I loved when I was a kid, and I still like to buy now. Spawn, even too, for me is one, certainly from the 90s. So definitely. It makes sense to buy a couple extra copies of all those 80s and 90s key issues that I like because I don't buy the silver golden age books. Kind of long term, my thinking, and kind of a second reason is I probably eventually am going to have a store at some point when I'm, retired and just, I feel like it would be a really fun job to sell all the comics that I like and, it'll kind of be hard to let go, but I think over time that feeling will get a little easier and it'll be nice to kind of pass them on to younger people and stuff like that. So, long term, in a sense, I'm building an inventory for an online store. So, I have 3 Incredible Hulk 340s, CGC 9.8s, and a raw copy of that. So, that's a good bulk of that. And, Teen Titans 12, I have 1 in the CGC 9.8, but I have 4 raw copies of Teen Titans 12 Cover A, really nice ones too. I kind of think about it as, I want to have a store of all the items that I really, really love, and it'd be good to have 2 or 3 of each thing, and in some cases even more if the price is right kind of thing on some certain raw books that I've purchased multiple copies of. So that's kind of another reason, definitely want to get a store. And, doing the research for this video, those are sort of the 2 main reasons. I'm building an inventory for a store when I'm older. That'll be really fun to kind of just sell books that I really love. And, not really nostalgic for silver and golden age, so I'm just sticking to, the copper age books and the 80s and 90s books that I really love. And, Yeah, like on one of my videos, I mentioned that Warren Buffett is really one of my idols in life, as far as certainly investing wise, but even some of his life mantras. And one of his things is, you want to stay in your circle of competence. So, I think for me in comic books, I kind of think my circle of competence is CGC 9.8 in Copper Age, late Bronze Age, Copper Age, Modern Age, pretty much. So, yeah, and it just so happens that those are the books that I really loved when I was a kid anyway, so, it's a lot easier for me to like throw down $300 or $400 for some of these books, because I really have that awesome emotional connection to it. But like staying within your circle of competence, I think is a smart thing to do in life. Like, you don't have to be an expert at everything. And yeah, a good quote is Tom Watson Sr., who started IBM, back in the 50s or 60s, I believe it was. He just said, like, I'm smart in spots and I stay around those spots. And that's one of his like quotes. And that's a good quote. Like, you kind of, in your 20s, you're kind of figuring out what you're good at, but once you kind of figure out a couple things that you're good at and that you really, really like, it makes sense to just really focus in on them and stop kind of being a scatterbrain and just trying to be an expert at everything. Really, I think a lot of smart people will tell you the best way is just to really find what you love and focus in on one thing or two things or something like that. Really put a lot of your time on like being an expert at something. So yeah, with me, it just kind of makes sense to kind of stay with Copper Age, 80s, 90s, CGC 9.8s. Stay within my circle of competence in comic books. That's what I know about. I'm not an expert in Golden and Silver Age books. I'm far from an expert. I don't know too much, except basically like the basic superhero first appearances that most comic book people would know. But yeah, and I think that's going to take time to develop if I ever get into Silver and Golden Age books. It's just something I'll have to learn about, and I'm sure I'll really start loving the covers. And I think that's what's happened with me with modern books, because I sort of was out of the hobby from kind of year 2000 to maybe like, 4 or 5 years ago, I would say. So some of the modern books in that kind of range I sort of missed out on, or I wasn't that too as big in the hobby, certainly since I've been doing the channel even too. So modern books are more like that, where rather than them being really nostalgic for me, I just like see them and I really see like the cover, or the Teen Titans 12 first appearance of Batman Who Laughs. Like, when I saw Batman Who Laughs and heard about his story and read about him, and I read Teen Titans 12 on digital, I was just like, this is cool. Like, he's super cool. So I just felt like I had to get a couple first appearances and get that Teen Titans 12 book. So that's kind of how I go with modern books, because I've been able to learn a lot more about modern books. But Silver Age, Golden Age, haven't quite got there yet. Haven't kind of developed that connection to make me want to throw down money. And another thing is, a lot of those books are just really expensive. Like, if I ever wanted to get like a first Punisher or something, Amazing Spider-Man 129, and like a 8.5 to 9, I mean, those are getting really expensive. And if you want to get in the 9, I like to have the high grade, so you get in the 9s, it's thousands and thousands. So that's getting a little bit out of my price range for like books that I'm not really nostalgic for. Okay, so I got a lot of like multiple copy books. There's quite a lot. I couldn't really bring them all out. Like, even I got Amazing Spider-Man 300. I got 2 of those in the CGC 9.82 white pages. So I could have easily brought those out, but I brought out 2 investment grade books I think are really good kind of investment grade books. Yeah, let's just quickly like look on the census for these. I got 2 Batman 423s in the first print, CGC 9.8. This is the Todd McFarlane Batman cover, the coolest one. It's been cover homaged a couple times too, but I always say this is like a Spawn prototype issue too, because just kind of with the cape too, like the cape has a mind of its own, and how the eyes are just in the shadow type thing. That's kind of Spawn too. And obviously McFarlane doing this. So looking on the census for this one, in the blue label, there's 90 CGC 9.8 to this one. And it's a 15.2% is the CGC 9.8 ratio. So 15% of all graded Batman 423s are 9.8. So that's pretty low. That's pretty low for sure. Yeah, this is one I've recommended in the past as an investment grade book, and I still do. And yeah, prices for this one on an auction, you're looking like $350 to $400. Maybe even over if it's looking really good in a new case. It kind of depends. I've seen them go for over 400 in an auction for like really, really good looking Batman 423s. But, you know, if it's a little bit off centered or something like that, but still a 9.8 nonetheless, yeah, kind of 350 to 400 is a really good price. And yeah, only 90 of them in the world. Todd McFarlane's coolest Batman cover. Almost can't go wrong. I'll bring this one. And yeah, another investment grade book that I have multiple copies of. I got 3 of these in the raw copy too. Batman 423, I have 3 in the raw copy as well. So yeah, pretty much 5 of these books. Again, kind of maybe building an inventory for a store, you know, something like that. But just cool to have nonetheless. It is a great feeling. That's the one thing. Pride of ownership, hey, is like the biggest thing with comic books. So Amazing Spider-Man 252, another one I got multiple copies. Yeah, tied for first black costume, but with the Amazing Fantasy 15 cover homage. This is kind of the original Amazing Fantasy 15 cover homage, and I think that's more of a reason almost these days of why this is just a really kind of wanted issue. And yeah, there's on the CGC census 1,168 of these. This one's in the newsstand, so more rare. This one. Newsstands are about 20% of the print run in general. So yeah, more rare than the direct version, which has a little Spidey face here, whereas newsstand has a barcode. 9.8 ratio, 11.6% of all 252s are CGC 9.8s. Of all graded 252s are CGC 9.8s, and that's a pretty low ratio too. Yeah, both of these comics. You know, this is a little bit older than Batman 423, but a little bit lower of a ratio too, which is kind of normal to see. But both of these ratios are quite low, even for 80s books, which makes them even more collectible. And, you know, this book's being so popular. There's 1,168 9.8s, but many of those aren't white pages either. You see quite a lot of off-to-off white pages, so to have 2 in the white pages, yeah, is even more rare. Price on this one really quick, yeah, $450 to $550, depending on how centered it is, how good the colors are, how good the pictures are, how well known the auction is, and this and that. But yeah, it kind of in a new case over 500, maybe in an old case, maybe in a new case even under 500 if you get lucky in kind of a fire sale auction or something like that. But 2 investment grade books, yeah, both of these, I think for, you know, both iconic characters, both, you know, really kind of cult followings of both books. And yeah, I think Amazing Fantasy 15 cover homage is just going to be more prominent over time because Amazing Fantasy 15 first appearance of Spider-Man has just skyrocketed in price. And certainly if you're a Batman fan, Batman 423 is probably the best cover of this era. And yeah, best Todd McFarlane Batman cover. Only 90 CGC 9.8s, but yeah, pretty expensive for that one, but still books I would recommend as investment grade books. Okay, so yeah, concluding here with you know, the reason why I buy multiple copies, and you know, really kind of building my inventory for a store. And you know, I have a lot of kind of the key issues that I want from the 80s and 90s that I really loved as a kid, so it kind of makes sense to add a few more of those instead of trying to buy books I'm not as nostalgic for and things like that. And it just fits my budget. And yeah, Warren Buffett, staying to your circle of competence. That's really good advice I've found in my life where, you know, I don't really feel the need to try to chase trends, or if someone thinks something's cool but I'm not attracted to it, like I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, like fake like it for whatever reason. You know, I just kind of stick to a couple of things that I really like to do. Alright, that'll be it for this video though. If you haven't already, I'd invite you to join the team and subscribe to Team CGC 9.8. It's our comic book collecting team here, kind of like the X-Men of comic book collecting, I would say. And yeah, when you press subscribe, the bell pops up. Hit the bell, get all our latest notifications. And add me on Instagram and Twitter too. All the links are in the description below for all that. But yeah, that'll be it for this video. Glad to kind of let you know of you know, I've had a couple questions, I think, about why I always have multiple copies of the same book, basically, you know, blue label CGC 9.8. So I'm glad to give you more clarity on that. But thanks so much for watching. Thanks for all your support, too. And I'll see you on the next video.